Joaquin Buckley. You see, I wasn't able to make a full breakdown of UFC Fight Night St. Louis because of Mother's Day. I hope everybody enjoyed that. I want to talk about this. Joaquin Buckley is quite possibly one of the better examples of a second chance in MMA. Joaquin Buckley. If you guys aren't aware of the Buckley lore, I'm going to catch you up real quick. You don't need to know a lot of this, but it is kind of required. Joaquin Buckley had his first breakout moment during the Great Cough of 2020. Do you guys remember Fight Island? You see, during the Great Cough, there was two venues that got introduced. The Apex, which is going away now, already made a video on that, and Fight Island. They got rid of Fight Island because it's pretty expensive. But at Fight Island, Joaquin Buckley made his, I don't know if it was his debut, but it was his breakout moment, because that is when he hit this spinning back kick KO. It has been dubbed the most viral KO in UFC history, and to be honest with you, it is probably one of my top 10 favorites. In terms of just see how cool it is, it's probably top 3. It is that cool. But if I'm going to be brutally honest here, that was the biggest moment of Joaquin Buckley's career. Up till in recent memory. You see, Buckley, as good as he was, I think it was a huge mistake for him fighting at 185. I'm sorry. Buckley's a ball of fast twitch muscle fibers. He reminds me a lot of Michael Chandler. This is probably what he wants his children to look like, and I do mean that in the best of way. Joaquin Buckley, brother, imagine fighting that at 170. He just bullied a 6'5" Uzbekistani man like he was a child. 100%. I mean this is a good way. But he did not have the greatest of success at 185. He had wins, he had losses, but a lot of his losses, outside of Chris Curtis, right, who is built similar to him, were against people like Nasruddin Imavov. People that have a huge reach advantage on them. People that are just a bigger human. Joaquin Buckley did not belong at 185. The build just wasn't there. So he gets a second chance. He decides he wants to go down to 170. In my mind, I can't confirm any of this, but this was his last chance to reinvent his career. There's only a few times in UFC history where somebody has been able to take a career that they were struggling in. Even stars that you know of today. Dustin Poirier got a start at featherweight. Gilbert Burns started at lightweight, moved up to welterweight. Robert Whittaker started at 170, moved up to 185. These were divisions that they are not meant for, but they either moved up or moved down to reinvent themselves. A lot of you guys don't remember Strickland when he was fighting Kamaru Usman at 170. You guys don't remember that guy. You remember the Strickland that was talking shit at 185. That was after the motorcycle accident. There's only a few times where UFC fighters not only get a chance to reinvent themselves, because they have a specific build that can do that, but they take the absolute most out of it. Now, it remains to be seen what Buckley's going to be able to do with this newfound hype. But Joaquin Buckley's definitely been a guy that I feel like if he was able to string together a good amount of wins, get a ranked opponent. He has the skill behind a microphone. He has the social media skills. I think he could go pretty far in the business. He just needs to get them wins. And when you're at 185 and fighting giants like Nasruddin Imavov, there's only so much you can do. So they give him a chance at 170. He beats up a few prospects. A few, not quite, prospects. Let's say that. A few prospects. A can. It's okay. In my mind, you are allowed 3 cans before I say we have to give you somebody different. And Joaquin Buckley did what he does and smashed him. When I say he's a ball of fast twitch muscle fibers, listen, it's not going to look the most graceful. But I imagine he hits like a fucking Mack truck. The double leg that he hit the Uzbekistani man in, I went from being these grapplers that are coming out of Dagestan, Uzbekistan, Georgia, man, they're just different. Double legs don't work on them. To, bro got bullied. That is what happened. He requests a fight on UFC 296. He wanted to be the backup for Vicente Luque and Ian Gary. That fight gets completely scrapped. Okay? They not only have Ian Gary pull out because of influenza. We've already talked about that. Vicente Luque didn't fight anybody. I believe Jeff Neal was the offered opponent. That might be wrong. But they offered him an opponent. Nothing turned out of it. So they tried to reschedule it. Vincente Luque versus Sean Brady. That doesn't make sense, right? Wasn't it supposed to be Vincente Luque, Ian Gary? No, because Vincente Luque said no to whoever they decided to give him, they had to reschedule it. I think it was Sean Brady now that I think about it, because they ended up scheduling Vincente Luque for Sean Brady at UFC St. Louis. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Ian Gary has to fight Jeff Neal. That fight was kind of a dud. Vincente Luque fights Sean Brady. Okay, whatever. I wasn't St. Louis. It was the few fight nights before that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Vincente Luque trains to fight Sean Brady. Sean Brady can't fucking make it. Has a skin issue. And then who are they calling to fix this? Okay? The main event is... The main event was absolutely terrible. I'm sorry. Like, I'll put it right here. It just was not memorable to me. The co-main was the people's main event. So they called up Joaquin Buckley to fight Vincente Luque. They normally don't do this because Joaquin Buckley at this time had a win over a prospect and a can at welterweight. They were unsure what they were going to get on the investment, but there's one thing that you can get with a Joaquin Buckley fight, and that is some fireworks. So Joaquin Buckley versus Vincente Luque. That's the fight that gets set. I was 50-50 on this one. I think Vincente Luque's chin was not where it was. I think Vincente Luque has taken a lot of damage in his career, and I could see a scenario where Joaquin Buckley was able to crop dust him. It ended up getting a little bit weirder than that. You can argue controversial stoppage, but in my mind, if you're Vincente Luque and you pull somebody like Joaquin Buckley over you in a half guard and do absolutely nothing with it, that's not controversial in my eyes. That's just low fight IQ. Joaquin Buckley becomes ranked in welterweight. Undefeated in the welterweight division after having a checkered past at 185. This rebrand is already going hard. And then Joaquin Buckley almost pulled a Bobby Green. If you aren't aware what pulling a Bobby Green is, that is when you've gone from like an almost unknown fighter to a guy who is, oh, we like Bobby Green. Bobby Green's kind of cool. Please don't do anything dumb. I want to fight Islam Makhachev. That is what pulling a Bobby Green is. When you have hype and you absolutely squander it on fighting somebody that you're just not going to win on short notice. So Joaquin Buckley does something a little bit different here. Joaquin Buckley wants to fight in his hometown at UFC St. Louis. Okay? It turns out that was the right move to make. He wants to be the main event. Derek Lewis doesn't want to be the main event. But they still make Derek Lewis the main event. Okay? They still make him the main event. Buckley's the co-main. It is what it is. If you ask me, watching that card live, Joaquin Buckley felt like the main event to me. The amount of people that were chanting Buckley's name is honestly kind of crazy. Like the amount of praise that bro was getting was very impressive. Joaquin Buckley has to fight basically an unnamed Uzbekistani fighter. Here's his name right here. I can't remember it. 6'5". 6'5", 170 pounds. This one was a tough one for me to think about. 30 submission wins. 12 TKOs. 13 TKOs. This was a recipe for disaster. I thought we were going to pull a Bobby Green here, and they were going to cannibalize the star power of Joaquin Buckley. And maybe that's what they were trying to do. They go into the fight, and Joaquin Buckley throttles this man. Outside of one good round by the Uzbekistani, Joaquin Buckley bullied this man for the entire fight. Easy win. And he looked good in ways that I didn't think he was going to look good in. Was able to take him down at will. And when he got his timing down, was able to get the more meaningful strikes on a 6'5" fighter. He won in a way that I didn't think he was going to win. I thought he was going to win after a crazy KO in the pocket, like how you think they would do it. No. The Uzbekistani gets bullied for 3 rounds and gets so sad that he kneels in the center of the octagon. Listen, if you want to do that, don't do it in the center. We're doing an interview. You got Michael Bisping gesturing to you what is this fucking guy doing here? And then Joaquin Buckley now not only has a win over a ranked opponent, is ranked above Kevin Holland in MVP. Kevin Holland is a dude that beat him at 185. He is ranked above him now and can tell him, I don't want to do a rematch. He has all this hype now. And he decides to waste it on calling out Conor McGregor. Okay? Listen, Conor, quite possibly one of the worst call-outs ever. It did its job. I'm talking about it, and that's kind of what he's pivoted to, that, all it was meant to do was get people talking about my call-out. And if that's the case, then yeah, it was an overwhelming win. But let's be real here. You weren't getting the Conor fight. And then goes into the post-fight press conference and talks about who he really wants to fight. I'm not even kidding you. A reporter asked him, hey, if the Conor McGregor fight doesn't happen, who do you actually want to fight? Like, say, letting him down gently. He says, I would love to have a fight against Gilbert Burns. That's a good fight, okay? And that leads up to the modern, what's going on right now with it. Gilbert Burns goes on the Show Me the Money podcast, which you should check out, by the way. It's actually pretty good. Goes on the podcast and talks about how, yeah, I will fight. I accept the call out from Joaquin Buckley. He says, and I do agree with this, sadly, I'm a Gilbert Burns fan. Gilbert Burns is not in a place that he could be turning down prospects. Gilbert Burns is in a place in this career where who is he going to fight next logically? Are we going to give him a rematch against like Jeff Neal and Neil Magny? Or do you have him fight Sean Brady? In my mind, the Sean Brady fight makes absolutely zero sense because Sean Brady couldn't make it to the Vicente Luque fight. So if he can't make it to the Vicente Luque fight, why do you award him a higher ranked opponent with a bigger name? In my mind, Joaquin Buckley stole the fight from Sean Brady, was able to get a win over Vicente Luque, contributed to UFC St. Louis being the highest grossing UFC fight night of all time, beating out UFC Austin. Selling, just about 16,000 people were in attendance chanting his name. He does all of this for the UFC. In my mind, you can give him some Dana White privilege. Joaquin Buckley, Gilbert Burns, UFC Miami. Make this a good main event because we're getting rid of the Apex. You could do that in a UFC fight night, Buckley versus Burns. Or, next time you go to Miami, just put it on the main card. To me, that's a main card bout. I'll agree with that. That's a main card bout. I'll end the video on how I think this could go. Joaquin Buckley, in my mind, has the power to put down Gilbert Burns at this point in his career. Gilbert Burns has a clean overhand right. But at this point, I think prime Gilbert Burns would be able to beat Joaquin Buckley. But this is a time where Joaquin Buckley can make the most of this situation. Welterweight right now, we are dealing with Colby Covington, who is playing games with Ian Gary. Shavkat Rakhmonov is fighting Jack Della Maddalena. Bilal Muhammad is going to be fighting Leon Edwards. Gilbert Burns is without an opponent. Joaquin Buckley is ranked. The best way that you could play this, Joaquin Buckley beats Gilbert Burns. Let's say that. He beats Gilbert Burns. He makes a call for the loser of Jack Della Maddalena or Shavkat Rakhmonov. Because I don't think, if Colby Covington loses to Ian Gary, you're not fighting Colby. I think Colby at that point is going to be taking a money fight and then he's done. I'm being realistic here. You fight the loser of Jack Della Maddalena, Shavkat Rakhmonov. I do believe it's going to be Jack Della Maddalena. JDM, Joaquin Buckley, and that'll be your new number one contenders match. And the winner of that can fight the then champion, the winner of... At this point, I don't know who would be champion, but I know Shavkat's challenging for the title. So it's either Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Bilal Muhammad, or let's just say that Leon Edwards destroys Bilal, and Joaquin Buckley sends him to the saddle realm. Okay, Joaquin Buckley would become a fan favorite overnight. Like, we need to start putting bounties on Bilal Muhammad. Whoever can KO him first. Okay, Jeff Neal is a loved fighter because he was able to beat Bilal Muhammad and KO him. If Joaquin Buckley can do it, like, that might be the better move, honestly. You try to fight the loser, like, after you beat Gilbert Burns, you try to fight the loser of Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad if it's Bilal Muhammad. If Bilal Muhammad wins the title, you're probably not going to get Leon, so you fight the loser of JDM and Shavkat. That is how you play it, Joaquin Buckley, if you want to get into that title picture. What a crazy rise, honestly. Like, it's cool to see a UFC fighter not only get that second chance, but be able to make the most of it. And now they're in that title run at 30 years of age. We got a good 5 more years before we're cutting that line. I think we can make the most of it. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. What do you think about Joaquin Buckley? Who do you think he should fight next? How do you think the welterweight division is going to be playing out within the next year? And with all that out of the way, I'm going to see you all next time. Adios, guys.